Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
He is Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us here this morning. Happy Friday, Austin. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Hey, it's been a couple weeks, so I know it's been in the news for the last couple weeks, but I did want to get your insight on Damian Lillard. I know you and I have talked about it a little bit on the phone and such, but you know, to kind of revisit the blood clot in his calf. He's been out the past couple weeks, but the Bucs seem to be pretty optimistic, and maybe even optimistic that he could return for the postseason, which would be starting here fairly soon. But I guess one question I had for you too, is this different than Victor Wembanyama's one where his was in the shoulder, whereas Dame's is obviously in the calf, but is it a little bit different in terms of recovery time, I guess? I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a number of factors that come into play. So really the concern is, the clot itself, right? So you do have issues with the clot. It can cause swelling, pain, etc. Of course, the real concern is if the clot breaks off and goes up into the lung and heart, so it can be fatal. So that is obviously a very serious medical condition. Generally, they're treated with agents that'll break down the clot, and then we put people on anticoagulants or blood thinners for a duration. Now, the reason that it varies is that there's multiple reasons that people have the blood clot. So if you have a known risk factor, some people will go on blood thinners the rest of their lives. So there are people who have who've had multiple clots, who have like factor V Leiden or protein CNS deficiency. They have conditions that put them at very, very high risk for clots. Others just get them for reasons that we don't really fully understand, so idiopathic. There are certainly athletes who get them from repetitive microtrauma, upper extremity for overhead athletes we can see, which is what Victor's likely was related to. Damian's, it's not as clear why he developed it, but it could be without a known risk factor. So, and I'm sure he had an extensive workup for that. So all the genetic conditions that predispose you to it, I'm sure they worked him up for him. So if they feel like he's low risk, they can elect to take him off the blood thinner a little sooner. But that's what's keeping him out now, is that I'm sure by now the clot has likely resolved itself. They're just going to keep him on blood thinners for a while. And of course, when you're on a blood thinner, it's dangerous to play a contact sport. You hit your head and you bleed in your brain. That can be a fatal event as well. So the irony is you're treating a clot, so you put on a blood thinner, and then now your risk is not clotting; it's the exact opposite, it's bleeding. So you have to manage that. So when you look at the two, generally lower extremity DVTs, so in the legs, are much more likely to break off and go to the heart than upper extremity ones. So you'd think that would necessitate a longer treatment plan, but clearly they've done a workup and feel like he's safer to come off a blood thinner sooner. I'm sure he's seeing a hemonc specialist. That's what they deal with is blood, and likely again an extensive workup has determined that he's low risk and that they're talking about transitioning back, maybe putting him on like an aspirin or something to decrease it slightly. But it's certainly faster than I thought. I mean, traditionally when we see people with blood clots that are idiopathic, meaning we don't know why they occur, I mean, usually you're looking at 3 to 6 months people on blood thinners. Clearly, this is a much more rapid timeline. So that's good for him, which suggests it's going to be something he hopefully won't have to deal with again.
Now, I know there's a lot of speculation out there, like why, because it's, a couple of NBA players now that we've heard about this season alone. And I know I texted you the screenshot. It was Kevin Garnett and I can't remember who the other one was, but on their podcast. But they're like, is it riding in planes and taking too much anti-inflammatory medication and such, trying to figure. But like you were kind of saying, there really isn't a cause that they could kind of point their finger to, correct?
Right. I mean, there are times where it can. I mean, like I said, if they were worked up and found to have a condition that puts them at higher risk, yes, then you have the smoking gun. But a majority of these are going to be multifactorial. So absolutely, long travel in planes, that is a risk factor for sure for developing clots. There are some studies that have looked at people who are taking anti-inflammatories and taking them on a regular basis, that there's a slight increase, but we're talking small percentage points. So it's not like you take an ibuprofen and then you develop a blood clot. That's not how that works. So, but if you took like 100,000 people and put them all on blood thinner, all on NSAIDs, 100,000 not, you're going to have a slightly increased risk of clots in those, but it's a small number. So, yeah, I mean, to say it's causative, absolutely not. To say it's potentially a risk factor, maybe. But these things do occur. I mean, these are not the first athletes that have had it. It just, the day and age we live in where, social media takes and runs with things, first off, conspiracy theories come out of the woodwork, and then it just really draws people's attention to it. But we see it in athletes, every year. I mean, if you went back and Google search blood clot athlete, you're going to find plenty of athletes that have had them in the past, and plenty of them are going to have them in the future. So, again, the majority of them are idiopathic, which is our fancy way of saying we don't know why they happen.
Mm-hmm. I want to move over to baseball here. So Nestor Cortez, Brewers pitcher, he was placed earlier this week on the 15-day injured list to what they're calling an elbow strain. And the way he kind of described it too was it felt scratchy a little bit. Is that something common that you hear when it comes to elbow injuries? Is a little scratchy feeling to it?
Yeah, I mean, not usually. I mean, the thing you get worried about with that is that there's going to be something, rubbing or abrading. And so sometimes when things are inflamed, they will literally have almost a crepitus. I mean, people can have like Achilles tendonitis, for example, where they can like wiggle their ankle and their ankle will actually make a crepitus or squeaking sound. So you can get an inflamed tendon that will create rubbing. The more concerning is whenever it's a joint that you actually have something going on with the joint surface. So that's one of the things we ask young athletes, and older athletes for that matter, if they have a joint issue, do they feel crepitus or clicking or grinding or those kind of scratchy type sensations? And it can be suggestive of something going on in the cartilage. Now, the good news is, in his case, I'm sure the workup has already been done to look at that. So it could be inflammation that's causing something to rub, would be my guess. Obviously, the good news is it's not something more concerning like an articular injury.
I know because they mentioned that apparently he did an MRI when he got first traded from the Yankees to the Brewers, and they saw something similar, but their concern they're saying is low. So they kind of gave the impression that they knew he had something already, or he was dealing already something with his elbow that was already there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you look at every Major League Baseball pitcher's resume as far as health is concerned, I can't imagine that any of them have a clean shoulder elbow where it's like, no, I've never, ever had a shoulder elbow problem. I would say it's almost like a rite of passage to have some, not necessarily something serious, of course, but I mean, to have something like that, if you excluded every Major League pitcher that had a history of elbow or shoulder problems, you'd have a pretty slim list of pitchers that can throw.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we have a texter that wants me to ask you a question. Could you ask Dr. Crow if he has any advice for golfer's elbow? Dang, it is painful.
Tis the season, right?
Yep.
So chronic tendonitis. So if golfer's elbow is on the inner or medial part of your elbow, so medial epicondylitis, we see it very commonly. It's probably a little bit more famous cousin is the tennis elbow, which is on the outer side of the elbow. Same exact process. So it's basically an overuse issue causing chronic tendonitis and inflammation where the tendons originate either off the medial, which is golfer's, or lateral, which is tennis elbow. So generally we recommend doing trialing things like modification activities, so repetitive gripping activities, heavy lifting, kind of those things. Not say you can't do them, just try and modify them. Stretching programs, icing, anti-inflammatories. That's usually our initial course of treatment. Actually doing some lower impact, like gentle gripping activities, kind of isotonic and isometric exercises, that has been shown to be helpful. Some people do use those little bands, like, for example, like on the knee, you'll see them on like patellar tendonitis, those little straps around the knee. You can also get them for medial and lateral elbow problems. Those can sometimes be helpful. If it really continues to bother people, sometimes we'll put a steroid injection in there. Very rarely it does require a debridement where we make an incision and kind of clean up the tendon, but generally you do that kind of treatment plan, it goes away. It doesn't go away quickly, though. That's one thing I always counsel my patients. If you have golfers or tennis elbow, expect it to be a month's process, not days or weeks, unfortunately. So it is okay to continue to participate and do things. Just if you notice there's an activity that's really triggering it, make sure you just kind of modify that. So
with the golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, you explained on which side. Is there does one get affected because of the range of motion, a certain range of motion from that, or how does one, how does a person kind of injure that type of ligament?
Yeah, I mean, so generally, so tennis elbow is the outer part, so it's more wrist extension, so the wrist going up. Golfer's elbow is more flexion. So if you think about the motion of those sports, now obviously the name comes from those sports. It doesn't certainly mean that it only comes from that, but golfing has more, if you're right-handed, your hand is flexing as the club comes through, whereas in tennis you're doing backhand, so you're extending the wrist. So those are the motions that tend to trigger it. So, but really any repetitive gripping activity can cause it, and it can cause on either side. So we see it on both, and of course, 95% of people that come in with it are not golfers or tennis players. It picked up that eponym along the way where people just call it that. So we do see it in both. there's not really a single causative factor. It's usually multifactorial, but often it is a repetitive activity that triggers it. So people, when they do get into the season of sports, or we see it even like gardeners who get out and they do a lot of weeding, they're like, oh man, I have my elbows bother me. It's just they did an activity that just really irritated a tendon, and it kind of starts this cycle of inflammation.
Is it ever possible? Does it ever get serious enough where somebody has to have surgery on that?
It can. It's uncommon though. I mean, so we see dozens and dozens of these a month, and maybe one or two a year go on to surgery. So I mean, and obviously those ones that we see in clinic are ones that have already been ones that people have not been able to get to go in their own. So I mean, the odds of tennis elbow going on to surgery is, pretty rare. Not say unheard of, but pretty rare. So, and really, those patients are ones that just we've tried all the different treatment options and it just isn't getting better. And even those, if you give it enough time, it likely is going to go away on their own. But people understandably get frustrated and say, "This really hurts. I'm just done with this pain." So it's like, all right, we can do a procedure. But the thing is, when you do the surgery, what we're doing, we're literally just going in there and kind of mucking up the tendon to stimulate a healing response to kind of break that cycle of inflammation. But it doesn't happen right away. So it's a surgery that you take one step back, take two steps forward. So it's not a fun surgery to go through. It's not horrifically painful, but it's not an immediate response either. It's not like you get it and then they feel better the next day. Far from it, in fact.
Interesting. The Masters is going on right now. Did you have a pick for the Masters?
Coming in, Rory. He's been playing well. He's a guy who's got some wins under his belt through the years, so he's got experience. I'd say he's probably where I'm at. I think he's 3 back now or something like that. 3 or 4 back.
Yeah, I think he finished even. So yeah, for after the first round.
Bryson is just fun to watch. I mean, he's right now he's got a lot of pizzazz. I mean, he's got more people following him, social media kind of thing. And man, when he swings that golf club, it is. It's like a pun, but it's like he almost comes out of his shoes. I mean, it is just, that's in my head. That's what I look like when I swing. I know it's not, but it's like you feel like you're just gripping and ripping.
Yep.
He's a fun player to watch. So I guess probably one of those two is who I would say. I can't remember. I think he's 3 back as well, isn't he? I think Bryson's right around there, something like that. So yeah, it'll be. Obviously one of the best golf tournaments in all of golf, so I'm excited to see how it plays out.
And speaking of Rory too, because I know there was some thoughts about him coming in, because a couple weeks ago he was dealing with what he was calling an elbow injury and elbow discomfort, but he said elbow's all good, got a little bit of treatment done last week and it's all good. So could that be maybe the golfing elbow that we were just talking about?
That's certainly. It picked up that name for a reason. And these guys certainly get out in the course and swing the club a lot. So in there, we don't, I guess, still think of them traditionally as maybe a lot of other pro athletes because they're not on a team, so they don't necessarily have a team trainer or physician. But I promise you, they are getting elite medical care throughout, and they're investing. The amount of money they have in the line is no different than any other major sport. These guys are the leaderboard, but those guys are making millions of dollars every tournament. So they're investing a lot in their health. So I promise you, they're getting a lot of different treatment options to try and mitigate any of those kind of issues. And so, yeah, I would imagine that is pretty high in the list of things that would be a potential cause of elbow irritation in an athlete like that.
And I got to imagine, we've talked about Tiger and his swing, DeChambeau. I've got to imagine if he continues that with back issues for the older he gets.
Yeah, for sure. If you go back and look at Tiger when he was early in his career, how hard he swung. Everyone said it's eventually going to catch up to him, and it took a long time, but it did. And Bryson, I honestly think Bryson might even swing harder. It is just, it's almost comical. Like when you see it, you're like, is he for real? But he is, and he just absolutely crushes the ball. And it's really, I played Whistling Straight last year, and I can't remember what hole when they played the Ryder Cup, and he drove that par 4. And I remember we were playing from, 2 tees up from where they played, and I hit one of my best drives ever, and I'm still 60 yards short of the green, and they were talking about he was hitting from back there and he drove the green. It's like, how can a human being hit a ball that far? It is just unbelievable. It just puts in perspective where you watch it on TV and you're like, wow, these guys are good. But what they are doing is just so much better than everyone else. So much better. It's impressive.
I don't know if this was a few years ago, back on the 21st, but our good friend Justice Cleveland reposted it. that video of DeChambeau warming up on the driving range at the Masters, and Vijay Singh is just standing there with his arm on his golf club, just watching and shaking his head, like what is going on here? So
yep. Some people are built different.
Exactly. He's Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Dude, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy the week, enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to give a quick shout out. Chase Brogelman had a no hitter for the Regis Ramblers.
That's right.
Night, so impressive outing for that young man. I know the family pretty well, so real proud of what he's able to do out there.
Awesome, nice shout out. All right, dude. Hey, appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
You got it. There you go. Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.